replaced. That's what the book says. I've got a new one from Dorman, 904006. Costs about 80 bucks or so from O'Reilly. And it's a two-step tightening procedure on that particular item. Let's see, fuel pipe, I don't see it right now, but anyway, it's a two-part procedure to tighten this thing up. I'll have to put it in the notes. I don't see it on these pages that I have here. But these bolts for the high-pressure fuel pump here, these two bolts here, those are 11 foot-pounds, I think. Yep. High-pressure fuel pump retaining bolts, 11 foot-pounds right there. Now you have to use new bolts. According to the instructions, you have to use new bolts, and the camshaft has to be on a 0 position. You have to position the camshaft by turning the engine so that when you seat the new pump, you're not using the bolts to depress it. Okay? And I'll go over that a little bit in the video, but these things are very important. There is the fuel pipe shield, 17 foot-pounds. The fuel pipe shield to head bolt, 89 inch-pounds. Okay, and the fuel pipe shield to head bolt, it's this little bolt right here, and zoom in on it. It's going to be this bolt right here, okay? That's in the head. And then there's another bolt that goes here that goes to that metal shield, the metal shield that goes over the back with the insulation on it, okay? Those need to have Loctite on them. Okay, so take them out. They're real hard to get out. Take them out and do it right, okay? Because that shield, they're making a big deal about it, okay? 17 foot-pounds. We need to make sure and do those things right because you don't want things falling apart and vibrating. There's lines back there. There's electrical back there. If that shield comes loose and starts rattling, it's going to cause problems. It'll wear a hole in something. You'll never know. It'll just be a problem. So let's avoid that. Replace this line. It's a two-step torque procedure. Hang on a second. Okay, I got it right here. The line, this line that goes to the fuel rail from the high pressure fuel pump, it's a two-step procedure. 12 foot-pounds, step 1, step 2, 24 foot-pounds. I would not recommend to reuse this. Unfortunately, it's some kind of special pipe. It crushes or something and seals. It's super high pressure, several thousand psi. So the fuel pump bolts 11 foot-pounds, the spark plugs are 15. I got another video on that. You can check out the spark plugs. There's not really much special about it. But when you get a high pressure fuel pump failure, some of the fuel is going to be dribbling into the cylinders and cause problems. Might fill up one of your spark plugs with oil. I had the spark plugs on the driver's side. Each one of those had oil in them that pushed up on the threads and got oil, filled them up with oil a little bit. Passenger side didn't have any oil, but I checked them all. So that's something that you need to check. Another very common thing on these is this Purge solenoid. We got a new one. It's not a GM one, it's a Dorman or something, but that's probably something you're going to have to replace too, because they just go out a lot. They go out all the time. So that's what we got going on here. Just be careful with this high pressure stuff. It'll really hurt someone. You want to keep track of the torque procedures and Loctite and how these things are done. Try not to get any dirt or debris onto the fittings or in the pump or anything anywhere. Keep the covers on them until you use it. Alright, that's it. What we're working on today is a 2011 Chevrolet Camaro. This thing has got the 310 or so power overhead cam V6 direct port injection, and what we're doing is we're replacing the high pressure pump. And when you need to do that, probably chances are you're ready for some spark plugs. You're going to have to pull this intake manifold off, and there's a few details about doing this that I need to give you a few notes on. This hose that goes right here, okay, comes out real easy. Shoot some WD-40 on there, right there. Boy, the sunlight is so bright. Shoot some WD-40 on it before you try to pull it out so you don't ruin these O-rings, okay? It'll come out, but shoot some WD, wiggle it around, let it set. The other end of this just has this little quick release button on it like that. You just find that little quick release and pull that and pop it off. The reason why I want to go ahead and take this type of hose off is because it's semi-rigid and you don't want to bust it or break it or do any problems. So we get rid of that quick. The easy stuff, alright? Now it's got this little cover on the back. It has these little push pins in there. And these little push pins are tricky little guys, okay? You get a pick and you pop this little mushroom top off all the way. If I can get it off with one hand. Take that off all the way. There we go. Take it off all the way and get up under there with a screwdriver and in those pliers and just prise the little guy out. The idea here is to not bust everything in pieces. This thing here is just like a fibrous noise insulator thing. And on some models of GM, which I'm not sure, remember which one, they'll have a spot back here in the back. It'll have a place back here with a hole in it that it fits into to hook it on there. I don't know why they do that, but every time you take it apart, it busts off because you can't reach back there and unhook that. So yeah, in this case, it doesn't have that, but just get rid of the noise isolator thing. I already took the top cover off, but you want to pop all these 13mm bolts out. The ones on the top that are easy to get to, they're all the same length. I think the one in the front, this one right here, is a little different in length. And I think even the head of the bolt is even different. If you look at the bolts, you'll see that bolt in the front has a different head on it. I'll give you a good look at that. So that'll help you recognize that that's where that goes, okay? Then you need to take, you don't have to, okay? But there's a little bracket here, all right? I take these things off because you're gonna bust something if you go running through here. But take this little bracket off here. It's got a little bolt in it. Take that off, push it up under there like this. Get that stuff out of the way because you're gonna break things. We don't want to do that. This little PVC line, looks like a vent line. This is probably the evap line. Has the same setup on it. You just push that little thing over, just push it down. Okay, there's a bracket here that holds the throttle body. Just take that bolt out. That's what it looks like. And I just pop this guy loose here. There's a plug on it right here that I haven't disconnected yet that I need to, but I'll get to that in a minute. In the back here, there's two bolts. This is what they look like. And they hold and if I move this around, you'll see where there's a little part that it holds back here in the back of the intake. Now, yeah, you see I can move the intake around, you'll see it. It's right here. There's two bolts back here, and then there's one 13mm bolt. I'll have to go from the other side to see that one. But you have to take those out. Alright, so this is the driver's side view, and you'll see right here that there's a bolt right here. You will not be able to get that bolt out, but you can get it loose. It's not that big of a deal. Just have to take your time. And here's the screw for the other side. There's a bolt that goes right there. Holds a small bracket there. And you get all that stuff loose, you'll be all right. Take this line off for that. This PVC line right here just fell off, so it wasn't on there good. It's brittle and hard. This is something that, see this right here, had to prise that off, okay? If you don't take that off, you're going to have trouble with this intake. You got enough problems with this bolt hanging down, okay? And if you want, you can get some electrical tape and tie this with some electrical tape and hold it up. But you're going to need as much space as you can get. You have to finagle it to get it out. But that's about it for all the little parts that you got to get off to get that upper intake plenum has to come off for spark plugs and for the high pressure fuel pump. Alright, so here we go. I've got it off. It's flipped upside down. Here's my bolt in the back. Okay, right there. Seems like it wants to stay. I'm waiting for it to fall out. But this is what things look like in here. Okay, it's got a plastic reinforced O-ring style intake gasket. Okay. And these are these two bolts back here that hold this little bracket. Now, If you want, you could probably remove this bracket. I don't know. I'll have to look at that and see about that. It's got to come out to get to the high pressure fuel pump, because the high pressure fuel pump's back here behind this. There's some noise isolation little doodads in here. Take all them out. But the next step that everybody should take is to put something in these holes. Now, you either want to take the gasket off, clean it up, tape it, or put towels or rags or something and cover this up, because as soon as something falls in one of these holes, you're going to be having a real bad day. So that's what I'm going to do now. So I'm going to plug those holes up, and you can see that you have access to your coil packs. Okay, these are your coil packs. I'm going to pop all them little guys off, and spark plugs, and we're going to do that high pressure fuel pump. We're getting the codes for low fuel pressure on the fuel rail pressure codes, and we got a purge valve we need to replace that too. So let me get this thing to the next step. Alright, so this is where we're at. That's what it all looks like. You got to take that insulator out of the middle there, clean that up before you pull it, because it's got dirt on it. And this exposes your fuel injection rail and the lines and some of that business, but that bracket's got to come off, and there's a screw right there. There's a screw right there that holds it. There it is. You see that little black trim around that head of that bolt there? Well, that goes to that bracket, so you need to pop that 10mm guy out of there, and then that whole bracket right there will come out. This bracket that holds all that insulation. That insulation is to deaden the noise, because that high pressure fuel makes a clicking sound, and nobody wants to hear a bunch of clicking sounds, so they put that on there. Alright, so went ahead and removed this line here. This line was in the way, so got it out of the way. This is what all this business looks like here. This is the insulation that goes on there, comes off last. This is that crazy bracket, boy. It's made out of some heavy steel too. This is that one little bolt that held it in that caused the problem. So we got it out. Having a magnet as your friend, this is how it sets in there, like this. So it's really not that big of a deal. Just get all that stuff out of the way. It'll take quite a bit of finagling to get this thing out. It's molded in there. It's molded in there pretty good. Took a little time to get it out without ripping it in half. It came out alright. Alright, so let's get caught up where we're at now. Let's see, these two little eyelets here. There's one here and there's one there. Now this comes on that fuel line. Just follow this fuel line here. And it goes around. Alright, so that's your fuel supply line. Okay, it'll have about 60 psi or so of fuel in there from the fuel tank. You release the fuel pressure here on this little Schrader valve. Release that pressure before you mess with it, okay? Or you're going to spray fuel all in your face. That's not fun, so we don't want to do that. Those two bolts bolt into that aluminum, and they got Loctite on them. And they are hard all the way out. Okay, and I took that line off. I wanted it to be out of the way so that I could have nice access to that. If you want to do it without taking that off, fine, that's cool. These fittings, these type of fittings, these ball fittings, they have a little bit of forgiveness in there. And I did notice a little bit of off-centeredness when it was installed, when it was together. So that may be something that's built into it. It is a ball-shaped design. These are really, really nice. 17mm fittings. They came off easily. They were torqued perfectly. I don't know what the torque number is. I'll have to look it up. You know, I judge, you know, these type of fittings like this very carefully. And when all surfaces are contact, a quarter a turn is probably the max torque that any of these will take. If you go bananas on these, you'll cause lots of problems and have things leaking and blowing apart. So just be very careful with that. This is what we're going after down there. That's the little guy there. That's what it looks like. I've got the top bolt loose right now, and that bottom bolt's going to be a little more tricky. If I could get my camera down there. That bottom bolt's down there. It's difficult to see, but it's there. And this is the new one. If you look at the new one, the orientation of that bolt is right here. That's the one I was trying to show you that's down there on the bottom. So get all that stuff off and get that new pump and have a look at it for orientation reasons. Let me get that little guy off and we'll take it to the next step. These things are slow and you can't get in a hurry because there's a lot of plastic things and stuff like that in here. You don't want to ding it or mess it up. High pressure, super high pressure lines. You don't want any dirt or anything to get on those lines or mess them up. Alright, so I've got my wrench on there. You can see it from right there, the head of that nut. You can see it right there. Just come up from below, sit there and turn it, and out she comes. Alright, so these are the two pumps here. This is the new one. And you'll get it with these little covers on there, and you'll want to keep those on there as long as possible. But this is the old one, and I was just matching them up for apples just to see how they look. This is an O'Reilly part, and that's the part number on the box. It's a Precision HP 16405. So we got one of those. Sucker was expensive, like $400. Nobody's happy about that. But I'm going to show this plug down there, and the only other thing that we need to do is we need to make sure that the plunger is in the all the way up position so that when you put this on you don't strip out the threads. We don't want to do that, do we? Alright, so there's the plug. They're trying to save space with wire or something, I don't know. They got it on a tiny little piece of wire here. Probably mess with it and get it longer if I wanted to, but it's got a little spot to push down right here. And it's plenty tight. But that's what it looks like. Wasn't that hard to get off. But I took the whole pump off first and got it to where I could see this little tang here. Then I took it off. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to check to see if this plunger is all the way up by turning the engine over and feeling it. And right now, the way it feels right now, it feels like it's up all the way. But I'm going to get a socket on the crankshaft and turn it over so that this is all the way in. And that's the last thing you need to do. Then you can put this thing back together. And I'm not going to show that part. I'm just going to get y'all to the place where y'all need to be to get this done. I'm not going to waste any more time taking a whole bunch of video of bolts and nuts going all back on. Y'all can figure that out yourself if you got it this far. So, I hope this helps someone. Y'all have a good day. And as far as figuring this out, I mean, you can take this little guy out, okay? It's not that big of a deal. It's just a little roller cam thing. Just put your finger on it like this, turn the engine over till it zeroes out, till it gets as far up in there as possible. Then you can put this little guy back on there and call it good. All right, y'all have a good day. Bye-bye.